We have a Sunday sermon in store for us today that is very informative. The theme of our Sunday sermon today is what is God's purpose for the earth? What is God's purpose for the earth? It's an important question, especially in the times that we live. In recent news, we've seen public assassination right there on a college campus with thousands or nearly 1,000 people watching. And in our time, everyone has their individual devices, so there's multiple devices recording, and that doesn't stop an act of violence from occurring, leading many to wonder what type of world do we live in? Why would God permit something like this to happen? In your personal life, you've been through things where you may have wondered as well, well, I'm a good person and I've done good things. So why would God allow me to go through this, to be able to suffer? Many have asked the question, what's the point anyhow? Why are we here? And those are the answers that we'll be examining from the Bible. The Bible really is the only book in existence that gives a satisfying answer to these very deep questions. And in order to understand them, we need to go back to the beginning of mankind. In fact, if you turn in your Bibles to Genesis, the first chapter, going to Genesis 1, and we'll look at verse 26 and 28. Genesis 1:26 says, Then God said, Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have in subjection the fish of the sea, and the flying creatures of the heavens, and the domestic animals of the earth, and every creeping animal that is moving on the earth. And God went to create the man in his image. In God's image, he created him, male and female, he created them. Further, God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful and become many, fill the earth and subdue it, and have in subjection the fish of the sea, and the flying creatures of the heavens, and every living creature that is moving on the earth. So here we see in the very beginning of human existence, God created the earth, and then he put man there. It says male and female were created in God's image, and then they were given something to do. Did you notice their work? Be fruitful, become many, fill the earth, and subdue it, taking care of all of the animals, the wildlife on the earth. The Garden of Eden was the spot on earth that God had already prepared for the first man and woman, as we know them, Adam and Eve. But their work was to expand the Garden of Eden so that it would take over the planet, so that the whole planet would be as beautiful, as peaceful, as comfortable as the Garden of Eden. Basically, then we would live in a paradise if things had taken place according to how God purposed it. But some things didn't exactly go as planned or as purposed here in the scriptures. Um, and as a result, we live in the world the way we see it today. But it's important to understand that in the original design, according to Isaiah 45:18, the earth was created to be inhabited. It was made for us to live in harmony with the animals. Adam lost the comfort and protection of the Garden of Eden. And so now humans are born in a harsh reality with pain and suffering. If we stay open here to Genesis 3, We go to verse 17. And notice the words that God said here. And to Adam, he said, because you listened to your wife's voice and ate from the tree, which I gave you this command, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground on your account. The pain you will eat, in pain you will eat its produce all the days of your life. It will grow thorns and thistles for you, and you must eat the vegetation of the field. In the sweat of your face you will eat bread until you return to the ground. For out of it you are taken, for dust you are, and to dust you will return. What happened? Originally, they were going to be fruitful, subdue the earth, everything was going to be nice. Now, from dust you came, to dust you will return. Because Adam rebelled against God, now he and all of his offspring would live a more feudal existence. They would not have perfection. They would not necessarily have wonderful work. They would have to actually work for their food. You see, before the work was just to expand paradise. Now he would have to actually work, sweat of the brow, in order to just eat. And then at the end, he would die anyway. That's the life that we live today. What's worse is that conditions are unsafe on this planet because good people are having to live here with wicked persons. But we are not in paradise anymore, the way God intended for mankind to live. In verse 23, it says, with that, Yahweh God expelled them from the Garden of Eden to cultivate the ground from which they had been taken. And that's where we're at right now today, still expelled from paradise, the Garden of Eden. In this way, Satan had some success in turning mankind away from God because there were only two humans on the earth at the time, Adam and Eve, and he was able to influence them to take this course. How sad. But it explains a little bit about why we see things the way they are today and why we may go through suffering. You see, for Satan, it was important to him to prove that he could influence mankind, influence humans to go against God. And he actually, for a moment, successfully had everyone on earth, the first two humans, against God. So now, how will God know who should receive everlasting life the way he originally intended and who is wicked? How will we understand? Well, each individual now will have to prove themselves to be either on Satan's side or on Yahweh's side. Each individual now will have to show. So when you're going through a moment of suffering, or things are not going the way you feel they should go for you as a good servant of God, remember that Satan is trying to turn all humans away from God. And when he fails, he complains, saying that God must be giving you special protection, and that's not fair. You understand what I'm saying? If you go to Job chapter 1, and you start to remember the story of Job, who was a faithful man, and Satan targeted Job. This story is here so that we can understand how things work in the spirit realm. It gives us a glimpse into heaven. At verse 8, it shows a conversation between Satan and Yahweh. Job 1:8 says, and Yahweh said to Satan, Have you taken note of my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth. He is upright, a man of integrity, fearing God and shunning what is bad. And notice, at that, Satan answered Yahweh, is it for nothing that Job has feared God? Have you not put up a protective hedge around him and his house and everything that he has? You've blessed the work of his hands, and his livestock has spread out in the land. But for a change, stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will certainly curse you to your very face. Then Yahweh said to Satan, look, everything that he has is in your hand. Only do not lay your hand on the man himself. Then Satan went out from the presence of Yahweh. What did we just witness? Satan complaining that he couldn't turn Job away from God. So then he has to get permission from God because God is protecting his servant. And he says, hey, take down all this protection and do something bad to Job. And then Job's going to turn against you. Yahweh, being someone who can never do bad, says, I'm not going to do anything, but if you believe that that's how it works, I'll allow you to prove your point. So there you go. There's no special protection. Let's see if you can turn him away. Why? Why doesn't Yahweh just continue to protect Job and protect us? Because the time period we live in will only happen once in all time. And it is the opportunity for Satan to prove his points. Okay, you think you can turn mankind away from me? Let's see. Do you think you could turn that individual, that person, away from me? I'm not going to stop you. It's up to that individual what they will choose. I'm not going to force them to serve me. Job 2, verse 4. I'm sorry, Job 2, verse 4 and 5. It says, but Satan answered Yahweh, skin for skin, a man will give everything he has for his life. But for a change, stretch out your hand and strike his bone and flesh, and he will surely curse you to your very face. There he's back. Satan was not successful in turning Job away, so he wanted to be able to actually get into Job's physical health. Say, well, I'm going to attack his physical health, and then he's going to curse you. And so Yahweh allowed him. And did that turn Job away? No. What did Job show? He showed that no matter what happened to him, he was not going to break his integrity to God. Satan was unsuccessful with Job. But will he be unsuccessful with you? We're grateful that God has given us insight into what happens in heaven so now we can understand when we're going through something difficult, why God is allowing this suffering. Because this is that one time where Satan is being given the opportunity to prove his point. And Yahweh is observing to see who will keep their integrity to him, although he believes in you. And he knows that you can, the way he believed in his servant Job. But Satan was the cause of Job's suffering. Who caused Job's suffering? Satan. Job didn't do anything to deserve what happened to him, and you may not be doing anything to deserve the difficulty that you're experiencing right now. And so today, is Satan still causing suffering? Revelation 12:12 gives us a picture of what's happening on the earth. right at this very moment. Revelation chapter 12, verse 12 says, on this account, be glad, you heavens, and you who reside in them. Woe to the earth and for the sea, because the devil has come down to you having great anger, knowing that he has a short period of time. That's us. We are here on the earth, confined to the place where the devil is here misleading mankind, and he's angry. He's angry. So, how do you think he feels when he sees you being blessed by God? What do you think he wants to do? Sometimes we ask God, why did you allow this to happen to me? But we don't realize how much God might be protecting us from. Because if Satan had his way, do you think a righteous person could be standing? God is no longer intervening in every affair on the earth right now. So therefore, things can become random and disordered. In fact, at Ecclesiastes 9:11, a piece of wisdom here from Solomon. Ecclesiastes 9, verse 11, it says, I have seen something further under the sun, that the swift do not always have the race, nor do the mighty win the battle, nor do the wise always have the food, nor do the intellectual or intelligent always have the riches, nor do the knowledge always have success, because time and unexpected events overtake them all. We live in a world where things are not the way that it should be. So keep in mind that sometimes what you're experiencing may not even be directly Satan, but you could suffer just because there's an unexpected event in a world where things aren't fair. Could just be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Finally, Romans chapter 5, verse 12 gives us one other reason why they're suffering on earth. That's Romans 5:12. Romans chapter 5, verse 12 says, that is why, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because they all had sinned. So we live here in a sinful world with sinful humans. Even we in our flesh have a tendency to be sinful. And that causes suffering as well. And therein lies the three reasons why there are suffering. So if you've ever asked God why, you have your answer. Did you catch the three reasons? I'll review. The three causes of suffering on the earth is Satan the devil, sinful humans, and time and unforeseen events because of the randomness of a world alienated from God. Those are the three causes of suffering. So what for us now? Well, Proverbs 27:11 has a message to you from God as you're going through this time period. Proverbs 27, verse 11. God says this, be wise, my son, and make my heart rejoice, so that I can make a reply to him who taunts me. As Satan continues to raise questions about each of us individually, to go to God, and taunt him, saying, I can turn that servant away. Yahweh is reaching out to you and saying, please, my daughter, my son, be wise. Make my heart rejoice. Make me proud so that I can look at this person, this taunter, and I can say, see, you failed. You were wrong. You were unable to turn my servant away from me. Gratefully, we're not going to have to go through this forever. And the earth will be saved. Revelation chapter 20 talks about this time after Armageddon. Revelation chapter 20. Let's look into the future and see what we have to look forward to. Revelation 20, verse 1 through 3 says, and I saw an angel come down out of heaven with the key of the abyss and a great chain in his hand. He seized the dragon, the original serpent, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he hurled him into the abyss and shut it and sealed it over him so that he would not mislead the nations anymore until the 1,000 years were ended. After this, he must be released for a little while. Now, if you feel the emotions that I feel in reading the scripture, at first I'm cheering. Yes, Satan has been bound for 1,000 years. This is something to look forward to. Imagine the peace that will be on the earth during that 1,000-year period. Not having the influence of the devil, just how things will feel so different. But then it says, after the 1,000 years, he'll be let loose for a little while. And then my cheering stops. Why? Why will he be let loose? Well, if we skip down to verse 5, it says, the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. I'm sorry, that was verse 5, if I don't know if I said that. So by the end of the 1,000 years, all the resurrected will have come to life. If you remember in your study of the scriptures, there's going to be a mass resurrection after Armageddon, which is the destruction of the wicked and the binding of Satan. And so on the earth, we're going to have individuals who never had the opportunity to learn the truth that you're learning right now. On the earth, we're going to have individuals who never had the opportunity to prove their love, to prove their faith, to prove their integrity, because they were caught up in false religion or for whatever reason, just maybe health issues, didn't get this opportunity we're getting today. Maybe it was culture or area they were born. Maybe they died too soon. Whatever the case, in the 1,000 years that Satan is bound, that would give the perfect opportunity for them to actually learn. They will have perfect life, perfect health, perfect conditions, so they can really get into the word. And they can actually decide for themselves at that point where they stand. Will it be with God or will it be with Satan? You see, there needs to be the other choice, the other option, because these individuals haven't been tested yet. Whereas we are proving our integrity now, these individuals who are being resurrected did not have the opportunity to prove their integrity against the test, against Satan being on the earth. And so Satan will be let loose for a little while, like a little puppet, to be used to test these resurrected ones. And what's going to happen? Well, the Bible gives us some insight in Revelation chapter 20 and verse 7 and 8. It says, so soon as the 1,000 years have ended, Satan will be released from his prison and he will go out and mislead those nations in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for the war. The number of these are as the sand of the sea. Eesh. Well, it looks like he's able to gather people from all over the earth that are so many, it's described like the sand of the sea. He's still going to be able to mislead people. Then what? Well, they'll attempt to take over, and then God will destroy them. Verse 9 says, and they advanced over the whole earth and encircled the camp of the holy ones and the beloved city. But fire came down out of heaven and consumed them. And the devil, who was misleading them, was hurled into the lake of fire and sulfur, where both the wild beast and the false prophet already were, and they will be tormented day and night forever. Footnote, that word used for tormented means restrained, imprisoned. They are going into the lake of fire, which is described there in Revelation as being the second death, which is the final death from which there is no resurrection. That means they're not coming back. Satan, the devil, is not coming back. The wicked ones that follow Satan are not coming back. How wise of God to present this final test for these humans. We're grateful to have this knowledge, this insight into how things will play out in the future, and to know Satan will be destroyed forever. Finally, Yahweh will solidify his rulership on earth, everlasting. In fact, if you're in Revelation, look at verse 14. It says, and death and the grave were hurled into the lake of fire. This means the second death, the lake of fire. And then 21 verse 4, what does it say? And he will wipe out every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. Neither will mourning, nor outcry, nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away. What does God do with death? He puts death in the lake of fire, meaning it's a symbol for the second death, meaning it will never come back again. Wait, what? This means that we will never have to face death the way we do now, with the prospect of growing old and dying. That's done. The grave, that's done. The suffering, gone. The mourning, the outcry, the pain, gone. That sounds like a time you would want to live, right? But what about the immorality and the violence that we see today? Verse 8. It says, but as for the cowards and those without faith and those who are disgusting in their filth and murderers and the sexually immoral and those practicing spiritism and idolaters and the liars, their portion will be the lake that burns with fire and sulfur. This means the second death. And again, with clarity, they are going into this figurative lake of fire, this second death, where there is no resurrection or coming back from. There will be no suffering, violence, immorality. We will not be distanced from God. We will finally feel close to him. As verse 3 says, with that I heard a loud voice from the throne say, look, the tent of God is with mankind, and he will reside with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them. Don't you look forward to God being with you, where you can walk with him on a daily basis and feel his presence, and for his presence to be here on earth, where every person is benefiting from the goodness, from the peace, from the protection, and from the prosperity that only God, his Son, and his kingdom can provide. Of course, to be there, we'll need to make sure we qualify. So take your time to learn the scriptures. You can contact me individually so we can study the scriptures, and you can use the website societyofunendinglife.org. Thank you for being here. I appreciate so much your support.